Hola, internetos. Bienvenido a Creative Live con Roberto Valenzuela. ¿Cómo estás, Roberto? ¿Cómo estás?
That is the most beautiful Spanish I have ever heard. Internetos.
You told me to say internetos.
Yes,
I was going to say internets, pero...
Yes, internetos. If you add an O to anything in English, it sounds like Spanish. So
that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Yeah,
that was
that's Roberto.
That was just for you, Roberto.
I felt at home because you were speaking my language. I was just like, oh.
She's good.
So
You're at home.
It's very nice.
All right, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great morning, afternoon, evening so far. We are going to do about 6 minutes of pre-show. Let us know in the chat rooms if you can see us and hear us, and let us know where you're joining us from. How are you this morning, Susan Roderick?
I'm good. How are you, Kenna Klosterman?
I'm great. I am great.
Are you going to tell the people at home what they're watching?
They're watching Roberto Valenzuela.
Did you say it in Spanish and I missed it?
You didn't understand Spanish.
Yes, we'll go with that.
You know,
101 solutions to common photography problems.
I did not say it
Did
in
you?
Spanish.
Okay, because I was like, if you did, that went right over my head. All right, I hope everyone's doing well. We'd like to introduce you to our in-studio audience. And maybe if you guys could tell all the people at home what your biggest aha or incredible moment has been thus far in the last 2 days of the workshop, that would be great.
Okay, thanks, Susan. My name is David Klumpner. I'm from Anacortes, Washington. I have a brand new portfolio site as of this morning or last night, which is my name, DavidClumpner.com. And you can also see some of my winter images on my Indiegogo project, which is searching for Palau on Indiegogo, and you'll find it. I really liked watching Roberto take a small space yesterday and turn it into a dozen or more beautiful images. I was super inspired, so I went back to the house where or the little apartment where I'm staying last night. There's a married couple I'm staying with, and the woman's pregnant. She only has a couple of weeks left, and I photographed them last night. And it went terribly, actually. So I realized that there's a big gap between what I can do and what Roberto can do, and I need to put in a lot more practice. But
I hope it wasn't my teaching that made it go terrible.
But no, I was really confident about it. So that part was great. It was just once I looked at the images on the computer, I was like, these don't look anything like what Roberto makes. So I just need to do more of it, I think. Thanks.
Thank you. That's cool.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Van Osdal, and I'm a wedding portrait and boudoir photographer here in the Seattle area. And you can find me at www.sarahvanosdal.com. And my biggest aha moments so far this weekend with Roberto's class have been definitely the 5 rules of what not to do. I feel like so much more confident that I can just go out, and just looking at those things alone will make my practice so much better. The flash part of the class has been really interesting to me, of where the placement that you put it behind and kind of just gives it that extra oomph that really makes it so much more professional looking. So I think that will be one that...
We're actually going to talk a lot about flash techniques today.
Awesome.
Quite a bit of it. I want to keep it super simple but super effective. So, but yeah.
I look forward to that.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Fisher. You can find me online at www.ashleyfisherphotography.com. I think my biggest kind of aha moment, and I mean, I knew that this was the truth, but yesterday after the class, we stayed after and talked to Roberto for a little bit, and just realizing that this does not come overnight. Like, you have to practice, and work really hard to get kind of where we are to where he is, and he really is just a master of this craft.
Awesome. I'm Christelle. My website is ChristelleAlbertPhotography.com. I would say one of the biggest highlights for me yesterday was just really paying attention to the gifts in the room, or any situation for that matter, and embracing the challenges that you're presented with. I think it was crazy too, because there was an ambulance, there was rain, there was just everything crazy that happened yesterday. So just really seeing that in real time really helped me a lot. So I'm just really excited. But yeah, focusing on the gifts rather than seeing them as challenges too. So.
I haven't. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Hi, my name is Cecilia Mitre, and I'm from El Paso, Texas. My website is signaturefilmsphotography.com. And what I've learned about Roberto this so far 2 days is how he starts with the persons, how he just says, we'll put you standing up, both of you, we have nothing, and then he kind of shapes them up and just creates the image. So, I mean, you can always have two people and you can just put them in the wall and that's a picture, but he kind of shapes them and then makes it more realistic, it just softens everything. So then glamour, it looks really glamorous. So I really like that and I'm learning a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I need the mic? No? Okay. Okay. Hi, my name is Leon Villagomez. I'm a Mexican photographer, but I'm based on Arcata, California. And I'm really excited about everything that I've been learning here. I think doesn't matter if you're a beginner or not a beginner. I think everything that we've been learning here applies for everyone. So I'm really excited about all the stuff that I've been learning, like posing, lighting, how to find like spots to make great photographs. So I think it's really useful for whoever wants to purchase this workshop. I think it's great that they can like watch it one over and over and over until they really keep that on mind, and when they go and shoot something, like they just have that on mind. So I think it's really, really good, everything that I've been learning here.
Thank you, Leon. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Really appreciate that. And just, it's always good to remember that you guys represent all the people from around the world that are watching. So every time you ask a question or make a comment, there are other people out there that feel the same way as you. All right, with that being said, I want to give a couple shout outs here just so we understand the global audience that we are dealing with watching Roberto Valenzuela today. Walter is joining us from the Netherlands, and he says Happy St. Paddy's Day. And we have Still Des is joining us from London, Ontario. J Trip is joining us all the way from Tennessee. And Webby Boy is joining us from Antwerp, Belgium.
Okay, we have Claire Graham that is here, ready and waiting. Hello, Creative Live and Roberto. I love you all. And that's Claire from London, UK.
No, Claire,
we
she's
have
cool.
Roberto Celli, who is, good morning, this is Robert from the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And Atlanta, Georgia. Marian, a regular from Bucharest, Romania. Scottsdale, Arizona.
Nick Lee's joining us from Singapore. And we know Fashion TV is there as well, so multiple users from Singapore.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, everyone. Well, it's 9 o'clock, so we are ready to get started with day 3. Welcome to Creative Live with Roberto Valenzuela. I'm just going to take you through a quick tutorial about how to watch today's class, how to ask questions and chat, and how to purchase the course videos. There's one place to watch Creative Live, and that is creativelive.com/live. You can take us on the go on your iPhone, iPad, or Android-friendly device. We've got some St. Patrick's Day parades going on in town, so if you're there, you can still be watching Creative Live. Let's take a look at that live page. This is what you'll see when you go to watch Creative Live today. Right underneath the video screen is the buy button. This is the quickest way to get to purchasing anytime access to this 3-day workshop with Roberto. You can see right beneath it how many hours are left to get that on the discounted price. Next to that, we can see the chat button. We are a global audience, and especially today, we've done a lot of shooting for the past 2 days. Today, we're going to be focusing on a conversation and discussion throughout the day, and so we will really be looking for you to join us in the chat room so that we can pass along this conversation and have discussion with Roberto. All right, so there are 3 tabs across the top when you go to the chat rooms. First one is the Creative Live tab. This is where we invite you to have your discussions with each other for on-topic conversations. Secondly, we have the Creative Cues tab, and this is where we ask you to drop in your questions for Roberto. We have a team of folks behind the scenes that are pulling out those questions and making a list so that we can pass them on when they are relevant. So again, we'll be looking for a lot of your relevant questions today. Let us know where you're from when you give us those questions so we can give that a shout out. And finally, we have the Creative Lounge tab. Good morning, loungers. Just a side note for all of you out there, Susan Roderick is today CL Russ. So just so you know, in the loungers there, Russ is Susan. Susan is Russ. Because we are on these iPads today. All right, moving along. In addition to the chat room, you can also ask questions via Facebook and Twitter. So on Facebook, it's facebook.com/creativelive. Give us a like if you have not already. And spread the word from there that this workshop is going on today for free. We also have the dialogue going on using the hashtag RobertoLive. And make sure you're following Roberto on @RobertoPhoto. Roberto does a lot of tweets about talking about where he is, what he's doing, all the projects that he's working on. So he's definitely a fun person, an educational person to follow on Twitter. And again, that's @RobertoPhoto. All right, the way that Creative Live works is that we are here broadcasting from this beautiful location away from our studio here in Seattle. It's so incredible, this old historic mansion, and we are bringing that to you for free, to as many people as possible all around the world for free during this live event. And then we will rebroadcast today's event after we end, for those of you who might be in different time zones. And then if you choose to purchase and invest in this course for your business, for your personal work, you can get anytime access to all of the videos, all 3 days of Roberto for $149. However, today is the day. If you're going to purchase this course, there is no reason to not purchase it right now today, because today it's only $99. And so you're either going to buy it or you're not going to buy it. So today is the day to go ahead and buy it. So again, that live price is $99. That ends at 9 p.m. in just about 12 hours, 9 p.m. Pacific time. We are giving away a number of fun and exciting prizes throughout the day again. Yesterday we had a lot of global people winning, so that was fun to give away prizes to people all over the world. And you can enter the contest on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, there is a little green icon there that says Roberto Quote or Roberto Contest. The way that you're going to enter is going to listen for your favorite Roberto quotes and tips. We're looking for things that are educational, that are inspirational, that are fun, and we're going to pick our favorites out to give away prizes throughout the day. Make sure that you include the course page URL that you see on the screen there. That is how we search for your quotes. And also make sure you're following @RobertoPhoto and following @Creative Live, because you have to be following us for us to let you know that you won. All right, Roberto. We are ready to go. 101 solutions to common photography problems. Let's do this.
And today we have a lot of problems to deal with.
All right.
So we are going to tackle this head on. So before I start, I'd like to kind of get going on a little bit of a review from what we did yesterday and the day before. And just quickly, on the first day, we did a lot about the Light 5. And the reason why I brought this Light 5 is because I figured it's a lot easier to remember what you do not want, than to remember all the possibilities of what you do want. When we talk about especially flash and light, which is one of the most confusing topics in photography, we don't want to be bogged down with 35,000 possibilities. So why not start with 5 what not to do's? If you can, everything I did yesterday when you guys were talking about the position of the flash, and you saw me on the first day how I was able to correct those crazy shadows that were appearing in places by moving the ice light a little bit to the left or the video light to the right. I'm just really thinking to myself, the first thing I do when it comes to lighting, I think, do I have any of those 5 things present in my photo? And if the answer is yes, I simply fix that one element. It's easier to fix those 5 elements. Once I get those 5 elements taken care of, everything else could be an added bonus to make it even more creative. So that's what it is. Start with a solid foundation. Start with a peaceful peace of mind, knowing that all you have to worry about is 5 little things. And I think looking at some of the comments from yesterday, I realized some people were still confused about when the face is darker than the background. What's the problem with that? I want to kind of repeat that one real quick. If the face is darker than the background and the background is not a sky, you're basically giving the background and your subject the same level of importance. That's all. That's it. And not to mention, if the face of your subject is darker than the background, you're also not having any catch lights in the person's eyes, most likely. You don't have catch lights. So those two kind of come together. The good thing about these kinds of things, if you actually go on vacation, like if you go to whatever, Europe or whatever, you can actually practice just getting the person to be brighter in the background by where you position them in the photograph. And like you said, David, yesterday you tried to do a photo shoot and it wasn't going as well as you wanted it to go, and you realize, well, there's a discrepancy on the when you're photographing, you're under pressure. You're trying to produce. But I've been doing these little practice things for years and years and years, where I sit there and I'm like, I have my wife with me and we go on vacation and I'm like, I just want to get you brighter in the background without using any tools, just by where I position her. Try that. It's super, super fun to not have a reflector or a diffuser or a flash or anything, and choose strategically where you put the person so they're a little bit brighter in the background. Sometimes a FedEx truck is all you need. A FedEx truck, the sun hits it, the light bounces on your subject because it's a white truck. It's a huge reflector just sitting there asking you to use it. I photographed my clients with vans that are just to drop things off, like flower vans, FedEx trucks, whatever it takes. But the idea is, had I not gone around thinking, all I want to do for this next 20 minutes is make my wife brighter than the background using whatever is around me. If I didn't do that, most likely when I'm doing photo shoots like here at Creative Live, I would probably get stumped. I wouldn't know what to do, But the beauty about this is the little exercises don't have to be boring or difficult. They can be fun. And I'm not saying to people, go out for 45 minutes or an hour or spend 2-3 hours a day, drilling yourself doing this, It's not what it's about. It's about challenging yourself periodically throughout the week. 5 minutes, looking at your images, circling. Do I have any of these light 5 things in them? If you do, what could you have done to fix it? Those brain gymnastics is what makes you, bless you. Was that a sneeze or it was a cough? I was trying to figure out which one it was, so if it wasn't a sneeze, sorry. The reason why I push this point, I wrote a book called Picture Perfect Practice because I am devoted to the industry. I want to change the industry worldwide in their attitude. I want the photographer's attitude to be the same attitude as a professional music performer, like a classical guitarist or a classical pianist or a violinist. Those guys do not go on stage without practicing for 40 hours a week. They don't. It is just not going to happen. You do not see a classical musician or a jazz musician or whatever, and they haven't spent an insane amount of time working on their craft. You just get to enjoy the results of all of that. And from years on years of teaching experience, I've traveled all over the world teaching workshops to the most beautiful people in the world. And I ask everybody, how often do they spend working on their craft? And literally 99% says, I never do it. I read books, I study, I do things like this, but when my cameras are nicely tucked into their bags and they're put away. So there's never any time where you say, I'm going to leave my camera out and I'm going to challenge myself for 5 minutes right now on how to do 5 minutes of making my friend be brighter in the background using the surrounding area. That's it. Yesterday we also talked about how even on diffused cloudy days, you still have a direction of the sun. The sun is still traveling through the earth. The sun is the honey badger. It don't care. You know what I mean? It don't care. I know, Susan, sorry. Susan hates it when I call anything honey badger because of that honey badger video.
Even worse.
It's hilarious.
It's
So
60
it's like,
million,
what?
60 million views. 60 million views on that video.
6 million?
60
million?
Yeah.
See, you're the expert in that video. I didn't even have that knowledge about this. And I was just like, it was 60 last night, but now 60.12. I was like, get it right. Thank you, Susan, for your expertise on the honey badger video.
Anytime.
Guys, I'm gonna ask you, since you're representing people watching across the world now, and if you're watching online right now, I beg you, sincerely beg you, to enjoy the riches you will have by spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes. If you are lazy, 30 minutes a week, once a week, on just one little thing. Just one little thing. When my friend David here did his photo shoot yesterday, it would have been awesome if you would have been like, it's going to happen. I know exactly what I want to do. One exercise you can do without taking even a camera out is pre-visualizing a pose. And everyone can pre-visualize the torso, but it's very difficult to visualize where the hands are, where the fingers are, what the expression is, where the feet are, and where the legs are. Much more difficult to do that. So if you sit in your house and you're watching your TV and it goes on commercial break, go ahead and turn it off for 5 seconds and visualize a pose of someone sitting on that console where that TV is. And just see what you come up with. Then put 2 people in there. Then put a flash to the left and see what you come up with. Then put a reflector on their face. All of this is in your head. None of this is really happening. Sometimes I'm watching TV and I'm seriously like going like, my wife's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, oh, I was pre-visualizing. I was just pre-visualizing. I also want to say, I feel like I'm pretty lucky in the sense that because I'm a judge for photo competitions across the world, sometimes the competitions like in Russia or in Europe, they call me up and they're like, Roberto, you have 3,000 photos to go through. 3,000 photos to judge. And I'm sitting there going, okay, it's going to be a long day. I get the coffee going. I get the Red Bull going. I get my pad and my paper. And this is probably one of the trainings that I've had that was by accident. Because I have to watch 3,000 photos on just one competition, and I purposely have to say that what's wrong with this photo is this. What's wrong with this photo is that. What's wrong with this photo is the leg, or the expression is not believable. Because I continue to do this 3,000 times in just one competition, of course I'm going to get decent. I've been able to recognize where the problems are in my poses before I even take that shutter, push that shutter button. You know, imagine if I gave you the 3,000 photos and I asked you, write down what's wrong with each photo and what's right about each photo for 3,000 of them. You're going to get very good. You're going to get very good. Now multiply that by 15 times a year. You know, that's what happens every year, 15 times. Russia, Japan, Mexican competitions, Spain competitions, Switzerland competitions, Australian competitions, American competitions, everything. So you start to really develop a sense of second nature to these things. We also talked about the 21 posing points yesterday and the day before. Yes, there is overlap in posing. Posing is posing. You know, to make a person look good, you do have to, especially a woman, you do have to separate her arms from her waist. There is no one who knows about posing who's going to tell you differently. So, one of the things that are a little more abstract, besides the obvious posing stuff, like the elbows being out, like shifting your body weight, those are obvious things. But the stuff that's not so obvious is things like how to strengthen the body and soften the face, how to strengthen the face and soften the body, how to keep that tilt of the head instead of slouching the spinal cord or bending your back. One of the most abstract and the most important ones is the invisible plane angle check. If I'm taking a picture of Ashley right now and my camera's here and I shoot in this angle from here and I shoot, it's going to hit her knee and your eyes are about 24 inches or 25 inches from that knee. So basically, and I always tell people, you're basically taking a picture of Ashley's knee. You're not taking a picture of her. It's about her knee. Or her, what do you call this part of the body? The chin? I'm obviously not a doctor. Shit, whoop, forget it. What? Forget it. Another one, let's see. Another one that's not so obvious, that is not so talked about, is the nose X factor to create a candid feeling and a candid moment. Another one that we talked about yesterday that I thought was crucial was the personal bubble. Remember we talked about the personal space? When somebody is in your personal space, you automatically become awkward about it. And when you get awkward, what do people normally do? Laugh or look down or look away. So it's not natural for you to post people looking at each other when they're close by, when their faces are near each other and you're making them look into their eyes or whatever. It's not a natural thing when you're in their personal bubble. This is my personal space. As soon as you come into this space, I'm looking down, I'm looking away. I'm sure not going to be like staring contest. I'm not going to be like, hello, let me look at your eyeball. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to pre-visualize what kind of expression you want. Are you trying to go for a fun, laughing moment? Are you going for a tender moment? Is the guy looking at the girl in a tender way while the girl's looking down at smiling at whatever moment they just had, some sort of joke, or some sort of funny memory that was triggered? These are the kinds of things that when you take a picture, the viewer is like, what's happening? Why are they so happy? What's going on in the background when this picture was taken? And you have to kind of have that answer before you even post a person. One mistake that I see a lot of people doing is you have your client, whether it's a wedding or not, it doesn't matter. What I'm teaching has nothing to do with weddings. It has to do with people. And what happens is I see them coming up with the pose as you're actually posing the person. So you say, oh, let me try, why don't we go here? And then once you get there, you're kind of committed to that location, right? But then you're like, yeah, let's see, can we kind of get together and, I don't know, hold hands or maybe hug or, okay, you're holding hands, that's good. Maybe look at each other. You basically stick to your comfort zone. Once you start panicking, you're like, okay, I gotta have a solution pronto. And what's my solution? Kiss, hug, kiss, dip, kiss, and maybe later, kiss again. Okay? And when you get really creative, kiss again. All right? So I want to encourage the people online to remember to try to spend 5 minutes pre-visualizing the pose and the expression. And if you want to really take it to the next level and you want to go a little harder on the mental gymnastics, add the lighting to your visual. Add the actual lighting. Like say to yourself, what if I add a reflector here? How would that improve the photo? And then actually mentally add the reflector and see what that would look like. Somebody asked me yesterday, what happens if you have someone pale with someone with darker skin? Well, reflectors come with a zebra, which is gold and silver, and they alternate. Well, point a zebra to the person that's pale, but bend it backwards, bend it towards you. The reason is you don't want to blast them with a spotlight of light. So by bending the reflector towards you, you actually, the light rays actually expand and they broaden. You see what I mean? So it's better to do it that way. If you want to have a single person, go ahead and keep it flat. But with two people, if you're only pointing it at one person, you want to flatten that thing backwards. And that ensures that she looks a little more tan without looking like she has a light bulb in her face, right? So, we also discussed the ability to push yourself creatively. Once you take a picture, can you push yourself to the next photo? What's the next picture you can take? We also talked about, especially in the first day, how to take a photograph of a detail, but add an element of photojournalism to balance the picture out. Remember the first day I took the picture with the bride putting on her bracelets? That's the photojournalism aspect. But then on the right side, there's her wedding dress. So next time you go on a job, or if you're just doing photos for fun, if you want to have an element, even if you're on vacation, you can go to Beijing or something, take a photo of some detail in Beijing, and then maybe add like one of the residents of Beijing on the left or something. Add an element of photojournalism. It's going to exercise your brain. It's going to make it harder for you. And you'll see the results will be beautiful. And when you're under pressure, you should be able to pull that off very nicely.
So Roberto, not all of us are judging 3,000 photos for a contest and all the time. What are some of the places or ways that we can go through that same exercise? And should we be looking at professional photos, non-professional photos? What are a few suggestions? Or even if you guys in the audience have some ideas about that, you can share those.
That's actually a good question. Because you don't have to be judging photo competitions. You can go to people's websites and start out with the top. Start out with the top photographers you can think of and look at their photos. Study them a little bit. Ask yourself questions like, what is the lighting like? What's the expression like? If you don't do this, it will never be second nature to you. It's just, that's as simple as it gets. So ask yourself, what's the pose like? Is the pose believable, or is the expression believable? Why is the bride there? Why is the groom there? Does that make sense? This is a good one. How is the environment affecting the couple or the person in the photo? Is it complementing it, or is it fighting it? Okay, you have to ask yourself these questions. Is the environment complementing the portrait, or is it fighting it? That's why a lot of photographers shoot with a seamless paper in the background, because they basically say, I don't want to have any competition. I just want to have you, and that's it. But when you're shooting portraits in the environment or environmental portraits, that's when you have to bring all kinds of tools to the table. You don't have seamless paper anymore to calm all your problems. That's nice and cool. But when you're doing environmental portraits, you have to think, what can I use to frame? Can I use a tree branch to frame my couple? What about the colors? Are the colors distracting? If they are, what can you do with anything distracting, guys? You balance it. So if you have an object that's distracting, put the distracting object to the left, put the portrait on the right, and you practically solve the problem, okay? Ask yourself, do we have anything reflective? And by that, I don't mean just mirrors. I'm talking about a table with a black lacquer, like a piano. That glass tabletop over there we did yesterday, look, that's not that original. It's just a glass tabletop. It creates a reflection. So just use it. You can grab an iPad and turn it towards the person with the light, and I will see your reflection on the iPad too. I can grab my phone and turn it on and and I can actually see you guys on the reflection of the mirror. Take a picture of that. See what I mean? This is like a mirror. Basically, even just looking at Susan's iPad, I can actually see her reflection on the iPad. So these are mental gymnastics, you know. We also think of in environmental portraits, we also think about foreground, middle ground, and the background. What's in the foreground? What's in the middle ground, maybe your subjects, and what's in the background? Is there anything happening in the background that's distracting, like a geometric form, like a triangle, or like a stop sign, which is like an octagon, right, with red? Anything red, blue, or green in the background is going to be a major distraction to any environmental portrait you take. So knowing that a primary color is a major distraction, you either get away from it or you balance it. That's as simple as that. You guys have any questions about the difference between clean, seamless paper portraits and the complexity of environmental portraits? I mean, you're talking about balancing colors, shapes, reflections, finding natural reflectors, looking at the direction of the sun, posing your subject based on the direction of the light. It's a lot of stuff to think about. What's complications for you guys? I don't know, Cecilia, what's a complicated part of you for environmental portraits?
Well, we have a lot of dead trees, so we don't have a lot of leaves. So there's a lot of trees, and when you try to pose somebody there, it just doesn't look good because it's just too plain in the back, so it doesn't fluffy up the scenery for me.
But fluffing up the scenery could be a distraction to your subjects too.
Yeah, that's true. That is correct.
Remember what I said, if the object in the background dominates remember yesterday at the photo shoot, there was that bush on that other courtyard, and I put the bush on the left, but I put the bride kind of fluffing her veil on the right? Mm-hmm. That's because that was kind of a dominant part of the environment. You have to have an eye for scanning the environment and saying, what's dominating here? And if it's nothing, then you can put your bride or your subject or your portrait wherever you want, you know. But if there's a dominant part of the environment, then you need to think, do I balance it? Do I crop it out? Do I go somewhere else? These are the kinds of answers you want to have. What happened at the photo shoot yesterday that wasn't going so well?
Yeah, good question. It was a really small apartment that I was in.
Like this little room I was in.
Yeah, like the whole apartment was about that size. And when I was pre-visualizing it yesterday, I thought the bedroom was much bigger than it was. So when I got there last night, I was all gung-ho, and I ran inside and went to the bedroom. And the bed went almost to the wall at the other end. And I had sort of had an idea of using the bed on the left and having them.
There was a wall close by?
Yeah, at the end of the bed came, and then there was a wall right here. And I thought there was more space in there. And I was going to use that space and balance them out with the bed. But then that didn't exist. So I sort of had to go behind the bed. And they had sliding glass doors. But then in the middle of the sliding glass doors, there was I don't know, at the end of, the bar that would go down the middle was about this wide instead of like that wide. So it was pretty dominant, using that light coming from behind as a backlight. And I did it anyway, and I know I can go back and Photoshop out that bar, and that's probably what I'll end up doing, but it wasn't what I was hoping for.
You said a bunch of stuff that...
Yeah, like just
threw
around
red
the
flags
room.
in my head. I was just like, okay, you have walls nearby the bed.
I do, but they all had, there were like lamps coming up through them. And
Awesome, I don't care, because the walls nearby allows you to bounce the light through those walls very, very well. So if you were to put a flash towards one of the walls, it would give you a huge window source. And remember what I said, if the light source is close to your subject, it's going to soften the shadows. If the light source is far away from your subject, it's going to harshen the shadows. If the light source is small, it's going to give you awful, super, super strong, crispy shadows in the face. If the light source is humongous, relative to what you're photographing, it's going to again soften the shadows again. When you're saying walls, try to think walls. Any wall is a window.
Yeah, I didn't think about bouncing. That's a good
Any
point.
wall is a window. And then the people online saying, what if the wall is brown? What if the wall is yellow? What if the wall is red? Very simple. Open up your little diffuser, take it out, and put it on the wall. And now it's a white wall. See what I mean? I'm just saying, you walk into any room, guys, you walk into any room. I hope this really encourages you to see the possibilities. This has been a problem-solving class, and we just solved another big one right now. You walk into a room, you're like, the walls are nearby, and they're awful, and they're full of little knickknacks in the walls and stuff. Who cares? A big wall equals a window. That's it.
That would have helped too, because it was getting towards the evening and there wasn't a lot of light in the room. So.
That's it. A big wall equals a window. A sidewalk equals a natural reflector. A FedEx truck equals a natural reflector on the street. A distracting object means you have to do what? You balance it, or you crop it out, or you move somewhere else. Before you pose someone, what do you do so you don't start making things up while you're posing your clients? You pre-visualize. When you're watching TV at your house, what can you do to help your brain do these mental gymnastics? You see, it's like it's awesome. Just do it. Photography is fun, but it's hard. There's a lot of stuff to think about. Yeah.
Are you going to talk more about how you blend the light when you're outside, like when you used flash and stuff, and you talked about how, you want to make sure it's at a certain power and that kind of thing, and all these technical things about making sure the light is blending with the environment. Are you going to talk about that today some more too, or?
Yeah, we can go over a little bit. We went over that yesterday more.
Yeah.
About how to, because yesterday we were actually on location, right? Today we're going to kind of stay here. But I think the best way to answer that, and especially for you folks out watching online, the flash, for the most part, remember everything in photography is subjective. If that's what you want to do, then fantastic. I'm not going to tell people to limit their creativity by any means. What I'm going to say is is just a suggestion, okay? When you introduce a flash off camera or on camera or whatever, the flashlight should be complementary to your subject. It should probably not be its own identity. If I'm photographing beautiful Susan and this huge blast of light just hits her face, and then the other side, it's all ambient light, the person viewing the photo says, that looks ambient, that has some sort of flash one on that side. And in my opinion, that's distracting from the soul that you're photographing a person, and when you photograph their eyes, you photograph their soul. And when there's a huge blast of light, you're thinking technically now. Now you're thinking, oh, I see her, what the heck is going on over here? You see what I'm saying? Why is there this crazy rim light happening all over the place? You try to blend it to the light, so it's not a distraction from the viewer. And that's, again, easier said than done. That requires you to really control we'll talk about that, from TTL to manual, to adding a diffusion panel, to putting a diffuser over in front of the flash and all of these different things.
Roberto,
Yeah.
I'm sure that people are asking about this on the chat rooms, but if you have like a super dark reception, like all wooden walls or something, like I don't think hanging a diffuser would be a great idea. Like,
If where?
Like hanging a diffuser to make it a white wall to like be able to bounce off of.
Yeah.
So then what would you do?
Why would not be a good idea? Where would that be?
Like in a reception, like if it was like all wooden walls or something like that. So what could you do
in a
instead?
reception, the walls are too far away anyway, so you can just go without it. You can use that sun bounce thing that I got that has like a little wall, and you can bounce it against that. You can have a friend hold the diffuser next to your flash, turn the little flash it towards it, hits the diffuser, and then it bounces the light back. You can just keep going, If you have a wall like in his situation, you could have just taped it to the wall and then shot away, and that's the window light, right? Okay. Yeah. How was that? How did that feel?
That's not very fun.
What happened? What happened?
I flinched.
And?
I turned
Did it freak you out a little bit?
It was kind of creepy, yeah.
Kind of creepy? Yeah? Did your brain go like, what was that? I just triggered your decision maker part of your brain. You see what I'm saying? Which is the next topic.
Great.
Whenever there's danger in your life or in your body, that decision maker part of your brain, which is the oldest part of your brain, reacts aggressively. That's what happens when some contrasting sound happens in front of you. That's what happens when there's a little spider around in the wall where you're walking, and then your senses kind of sense something. You look at it, and your brain's like, that looks like a huge spider. But by the time your brain processes that, your brain's already saying, danger, get the heck out of there. And the way the brain reacts, the way you react when your brain has that danger, you automatically go like this, like that. Don't we? The muscle movements in your body go into overdrive whenever there's imminent danger to you, or to your body, or to your safety. And that part of the brain is the part of the brain that makes decisions whether they're going to hire you as a photographer or not. So let's get to know that part of the brain, shall we?
We shall.
Yeah,
We shall.
let's do it.
Roberto, and I just wanted to take a second too, because you started to talk about what we're going to do next. Could you just take a couple minutes to talk about what we're going to do for the entire day? Because I don't think we touched on that in the beginning, and that would be great for the folks at home.
For the folks at home,
What does today look like?
having nice hot chocolate by their
Nice.
computer. That's very nice. Lucky. We're going to talk first about a topic that I'm super passionate about, and I feel like it's super, super important for your ability to close deals at client meetings. Instead of talking to you about how to show wedding albums and pictures and blah, 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 and how to diffuse objections and all those different stuff, we're going to dig much deeper into that part of the brain that's actually making decisions of whether they're going to hire you or not. It's a whole different field, a whole different language, a whole different strategy altogether. My hope for that is after you listen to this class and you watch it over and over, you start to realize that the way you speak to a human being is not the way you speak to a person you're trying to get them to spend a lot of their hard-earned money on. There's a big difference, okay? The second thing is we're going to go over some client meetings, and we're going to implement the knowledge that we learned about how to talk to that part of the brain, and we're going to implement it into our clients. We're going to talk about diffusing all kinds of issues, objections. We're going to talk about timeline strategies, how to make the timeline work for you as a photographer, and how to make the timeline work for all the other vendors as well, because we're team players. Like, you have to be a team player. You cannot make the timeline just for yourself. But there is ways to talk about the timeline that will work for you well. We're also going to talk about educating the clients. Okay? If you tell them about the timeline, but you don't educate them why, it's just words. It doesn't mean anything. We're also going to talk about how to go about showing sample albums. We're going to talk about how to do some basics of Flash and some basics of Flash setups. That will be segment 3. And on segment 4, we're going to talk about how to shoot reception details, how to shoot receptions, how to use Flash to shoot receptions, how do you do multiple Flash setups, single Flash setups, 2 Flash setups, and everything else. So that's the day. Kenna.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. And I love seeing everything that's set up that we're gonna shoot later.
Yeah, it's fun, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of nice, that is. All right, let me go to my keynote here. Actually, did that freak you out a little bit? Like, was that really bad? Yeah? I was gonna scream, actually. I was gonna scream at you, but I just thought I'll just clap right in front of your ear.
Roberto is full of surprises. You never really know what to expect from this.
You never know. Just roll. Take a look at those. Take a look at that client on that photograph. They look like normal people, but there's a little tiny part of their brain that behaves on its own. That part of the brain is the honey badger of the brain.
Like I said, you never know what to expect.
That part of the brain don't care.
Honey badger don't care, Roberto.
That part of the brain don't care.
Roberto, Kim, your wife, is over there nodding her head. Not just us.
Oh my God. When you go to the groceries on something like that, which is a low involvement purchase, has a lot to do with family and what your family trained you to do. When you buy a toothpaste, it's usually the toothpaste you grew up with. When you buy a cereal, even when you're an adult, you usually stick to the cereals for comfort that you like Cocoa Krispies or any of the really bad ones. That's what I have in my house. I'm full of Cocoa Krispies and the chocolatey ones, But all the healthy ones are the ones the other part of your brain, your thinking part of your brain says, you should probably buy this one. But the part that says, this brings me back to being a kid, that's the decision maker part of the brain. Anything that goes back to being a child is going to talk to that part of the brain. Because when you're a child, everything is happy, everything is calm, and the only worry you have is how you're going to have fun next. Right? True. That's your worry. And the brain likes that. That part of the brain likes that comfort. That is a beautiful comfort zone to be in. Okay? When you start triggering, one of the major mistakes we do as photographers is we're talking to our clients trying to sell them on something, and we're talking to them, but we're talking in a way that only the thinking part of the brain is triggered. Like, you're talking to them in a way that makes them think. You're not talking to them in a way that makes them react. What I did to poor Ashley right now was make her react. That is the way you want to go about selling your photography products. So that's toothpaste, cereal, shampoo bottles, paper towels. All of those low involvement purchases have a lot to do with tradition. Very, very difficult to change somebody's mind about those things. Companies spend a lot of money trying to switch you over to their product, but once you're stuck, once your mom or your dad or your uncle has Bounty paper towels or whatever, is that the Bounty towel? And then I hope it wasn't like a car tire company and just totally messed that up. It was good. And then they're trying to switch it to another one. What's another paper towel company?
We all use Bounty.
See, actually, that's another marketing thing, right? It's kind of like it's kind of like Kleenex, this has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Just quickly, Kleenex was a victim of its own marketing because their success in marketing was so large that all tissues were called Kleenex. So there was no brand. There was no brand differentiation whatsoever anymore. Everybody's like, give me a Kleenex, and it just meant give me a piece of paper, or like give me a tissue. And Kleenex is like, no, I'm Kleenex, I'm better. These other guys are not Kleenex, that's tissue, please. And they had to pull back, and they had to and they never really recovered. People still call it, can I have a Kleenex, please? Like, that's it. That's true. You're done. So, when you're talking about selling wedding photography, you're talking about a very high emotional consumption. That means when a client comes to your house, they come with all sorts of predetermined issues and problems and worries in their head. because they're about to buy something that requires a lot of decisions to be made. Hint, decisions. Decision maker, remember that? Decisions. Okay. The client that is purchasing a high emotional involvement product, like wedding photography, is a very different kind of client, or they come with a very different mindset than a client that's going to buy toothpaste at the store. So this is very much the map of a person coming into your studio to look to see if they're going to hire you and your services. The first thing is they're going to come with extensive research. When you go buy a napkin or something, you don't come with extensive research. You just say, dude, I need a napkin. Just give me a napkin, whatever works. We don't have this one. Fine, give me the other one. With wedding photographers, you don't say, or portrait photographers or children photographers, you don't say, I really want this person. We don't have that person. That person's not available. That's okay, give me the next one. You don't think like that. You think, no, I really want this. I will reschedule if I have to, you know? The second one is the type of client that comes with high emotional consumption is much more sophisticated. In other words, they do a lot more work. They know. They talk to people. They read articles. They read magazines. They talk to their friends. They ask questions. They're much more sophisticated. You trying to play little hard sell techniques, they're going to catch you, they're going to smell it, and they're not going to like it. Because to the decision maker part of your brain, a sales technique that sounds sleazy basically means it's a trap. And a trap means danger. And you're going to get away. You're going to reject danger. Just like when I screamed at you right now, and you flinched and everything happened in your body very quickly, you're going to reject danger. So when people say, I went to business school, right? And they were talking about the dangers of doing the hard sell. Very dangerous game, especially when you're dealing with emotional consumptions. There's a better way to do it, and we'll talk about it. There's a better way. You want to talk to them in terms of their survival and in terms of alleviating their worries. That's truly the best way to sell. And that's the hard sell that does not get rejected by the brain. Okay? Long sales cycle. The third one is, don't you think for a second when someone comes to you and they meet with you that that's the last time you're going to hear from them and you're going to be able to make a decision. Which takes me to the next point. You trying to close the deal right there and then, if you can, more power to you. But if they don't know who you are, you don't have a huge reputation, they're not totally sure, the sales cycle is going to be a lot longer for you. You first start with an email, then it's a phone call, then let's set up a meeting, and then they want to talk to you about stuff, and they want to hear your voice, and they want to hear how you react. Are you friendly? Are you easy to talk to? Probably shouldn't say this. Yeah, I will say it. When I was looking for a wedding photographer myself, I went and I did a lot of research. I wasn't a photographer back then when I was getting married. I was a high school marketing, economics, finance, and accounting teacher. And I remember going into the studio and going into the bathroom. Can I say this?
I don't know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say there was pubes all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good story, Roberto. Good story.
Let's move on. Okay. Not to mention it gets worse. You grab the toilet and you lift it, and the little yellows were just streaking down.
Oh.
Oh, heck no. I was done with that photographer before I even saw a single picture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Gross.
Question not on that story, but before you had a studio...
You don't have a question on the... No?
Before you had a studio, where did you meet your clients?
I still meet them at my house. My studio is in my house.
Okay, you always met them at your house.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. Remember, high emotional consumption. They need to relate with you. Where do you live? How do you live? Do they relate with you? And we'll talk about that more. Yes.
So we had this discussion the other day, and I live, my house is fine, but it's not, I'm marketing to like the higher end market, and I don't want them coming to my house and saying like, you're paying me this much money and this is where you live kind of thing. So where would you recommend? Do you recommend going there?
I just remodeled my home has an actual studio attached. It's like a home studio thing. And I just remodeled the whole thing. The whole thing was remodeled. And during construction and all of that, I met with clients like almost every other day. I just met them at the nearest Four Seasons hotel. Now, if you don't have a Four Seasons hotel, go to the nearest Sheraton. Come on, there's got to be a Sheraton somewhere there. Or go anywhere else. But you can meet them at any restaurant, lounge, or whatever. I just think it's less personal, you know? I still booked my weddings, but it's less personal. And when I meet with clients, and I want to share this with you and everyone watching online, there's a lot of psychology that goes in behind the scenes that has to do with your home and your studio and the decor and the props that you have in your house and everything. That affects a lot of what happens.
That's interesting what you said, Roberto, because I've heard from a lot of other photographers, they'll suggest going to a Starbucks. But I think your recommendation is much better because a decent or nice hotel's restaurant is going to have a very different ambiance than Starbucks.
I don't know why you would ever go to a Starbucks. There's nothing wrong with Starbucks, but you're trying to get them to focus on you and concentrate. Now listen to 1,700 conversations and glasses clinging and all this different stuff. You're totally killing your ability to get them to focus on you. Again, that part of the brain that makes decisions is also looking out for your safety and your survival. One of the things that part of the brain does not like is sounds that are not familiar with that part of your brain. Clinging and all these different sounds, everything that creates a contrast is going to be a red flag for that part of your brain. So let's say you're listening to people's conversations or whatever, and then somebody like clings their glass, that little ting is going to be like, what was that? That is not a normal conversation that was going on. I hear a little contrasting sound. I'm freaking out. Is it dangerous? No, it's not. Okay, you can concentrate again. Okay? And then you hear a jackhammer, like kind of happens out of nowhere, or somebody slams the bathroom door. These are contrasting sounds, and the brain reacts to them, like Ashley did. Right? So no, we're not going to take them to a Starbucks. It doesn't even make any sense. You can grab coffee at a quieter place where they can focus on you. The other one is, I already talked about this one, clients doing high emotional consumption, they resist closing techniques. This is a dangerous game people play. Look, photographers come in all kinds of flavors, and they all talk about different sales techniques, and they're all good if they works for them. Okay, this is a different side of the story. Closing techniques are perceived as traps. Traps put red flags. Let me ask you something. If you go to Best Buy, or you go to your consumer electronics store, and you're looking at a TV, and you're like, a TV is it's a high emotional consumption, because you're going to be seeing that thing forever. A TV and you, as a photographer, are practically the same thing, okay? Because it's a high price value. You go and you see a TV, and then the salesman comes over, and the salesman's like, oh, these are the features, and by the way, the features, talking about the features of a TV, talking about the features of you, is useless by every meaning of that word. You cannot go to a client and talk about the attributes. You need to talk about the results. You need to talk about what they're going to get. When someone buys a hammer, they're not looking at the hammer and the features of the hammer. What do they really want with a hammer?
Build something.
They want to hit something, and they want to make sure it hits straight. When people buy a screwdriver, they don't care about the features of the screwdriver. What they're really needing is a way to turn a screw. When somebody buys a drill, they're not buying the drill for the drill. They're buying the drill because they need a hole. Right? You need a hole. So your brain says, I need a hole. Let me go to the store. What kind of hole can I make with this one? Now you're talking to the right side of your brain, to the correct part of the brain. I need a hole. Tell me about what kind of hole I can make with this. then you can talk about it. But if people talk about the drill, like this one has 9.8 volts and this and that, you have to change your wording. You can make a much better hole with this drill because this drill has enough power to drill through the wood seamlessly, quickly. You no longer have to worry about little residue of wood on the hole because it will just go so powerfully down. This drill, the hole you can make on this drill is great because this one has a stabilizer on it. So the hole will be perfectly straight. If you ever go to the left or you gear to the right, you go to the right, you accidentally go to the right, this drill will tell you and you can straighten your hole, okay? This is the right way to talk to people. It's like photographers talking to their clients and saying, these are my photos. Look how awesome I am. Look at this beautiful picture. That's a waste of time. The brain is shut off completely. It's like, next, keep talking because I'm not listening. See what I mean? When you say something like, and I'll talk about this more later, when you say something like, this is one of the best moments at your wedding because my client's wedding because the grandma, whatever, and she was, you know, she had a really great moment and that moment was going to last forever and even though she's not and all this different stuff. Now you're like, oh, memories. I need memories. Remember when this person was laughing and this moment was happening and I captured this moment for you, memories. People want that. You know, so you have to talk about it in terms of what benefit they're going to receive instead of what attributes your product has. Okay? So, and the last one is when clients come up to you, they're much more skeptical. They come to you with a defensive barrier. Back to my Best Buy thing. You go to Best Buy, the salesman comes over, talks to you about the attributes. When people come to me and they try to sell me on something, since I studied this in college and I read like 100 books on this topic and everything, not 100, like 10. I go to them, that was a slight exaggeration. I go to them and I say, okay, if I look interested, but then I kind of start walking away from it and they start trying to close the deal, like they're like, oh, if you buy this now, I will get you a free Blu-ray player. You're like, oh, cool. Why are you so desperate? If this TV is so great, it will sell itself. Now I feel like I'm being pressured, like something's not being told to me that I need to know, you know? Or they say to you, if you buy it today, or if you sign my photography services today, we can give you an additional 10% off. And we can throw in the Blu-ray player and 3 Blu-ray movies. Red flags go all out. It's like, now you're like feeling pressure. You're closing yourself. Your brain's feeling danger. This is not working. You walk away from it. Okay? Your thinking part of your brain says, ooh, save money, rational. Rational thinking does not play a role in selling high emotional products. Remember that. Rational thinking does not play a role. It's only survival things. It's only contrasting things. Okay, so more skeptical. They come to you and they're very skeptical. You try closing techniques on them and they're going to feel very skeptical about you. They're going to feel like you're not telling them something that they need to know. So any questions on that, you guys? Is that kind of interesting?
Could you go through, Roberto, maybe some examples of those with regard to wedding photography and portrait photography, the sales tactics that don't work?
Sales tactics that don't work?
Like say Sarah is your bride.
Sarah, hi.
Hi.
She's my bride or my client or my wife?
Your client.
My client, okay. Oh, no wife.
Kim.
I find this incredibly fascinating, Roberto. This whole psychology of this is so interesting.
It is interesting. You'll be surprised how much this will help you close and actually have a higher yield of bookings and successful bookings for that matter, where the expectations are met. You know, an example just think about the drill or the hammer or the screwdriver example when you're talking about your photos. Yeah, you know what, Kenna? I'm going to answer that question on my next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to jump into it, but I will answer that question. Okay, guys, take a look at this slide real quick. And And let's work ourselves from the inside out. Most of us think of the brain as two layered, right? You have the left and the right. The left side of the brain is what? Technical, scientific, mathematical, right? The right side of the brain is all of us photographers, right? Photography is the artistic, the stuff that rolls with the punches when you do a skit and you have to make it up, anything creative, anything you have to come up with yourself. Okay, the left and the right work together when you play music. This is all wonderful stuff. This has nothing to do with selling or trying to get people to buy your product. When you're trying to make decisions like this, another three layers come to play. The inner layer, or the more primitive part of your head, is called the inner brain, and that's the part of the brain that makes decisions. Okay, the middle part of the head is the part that is the emotional part of the brain. The part that when you see the bum in the street and you feel terrible empathy towards them, and you feel like you want to give them money, that's the middle brain coming into play. Anything when you feel something, the middle brain is coming into play. The outside, or the part that's actually closest to your cranium, closest to the skull, is the outer brain, and that's the part that thinks quickly. You know, it's the part that thinks. These two guys are on their own they do their own thing and they play together. This guy, the inner one, honey badger, all the way through. That one doesn't change. Someone can change the way you feel about something, someone can change the way you think about something, but no one in the world will be able to change the way the inner part of their brain will decide about something. Remember that very carefully. You can change the way people think, you can change the way people feel, but there's no way you'll ever affect, unless you talk to that part of the brain properly, how the brain decides. Okay? What was that? The guy, like, when I say okay, I want to say it like the guy in South Park. Okay, Mr. Garrison. Remember that? Okay. Okay. If you want to talk to the new brain, the part that thinks, you can talk about math and formulas, and you can talk about how this makes sense. Wonderful. If you want to talk to the middle part of the brain, you can talk about something that's touchy-feely. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If you want to talk to the decision-maker part of the brain, you have to look at these things here. Okay? The first one is that part of the brain is self-centered. It doesn't care about anything else other than itself. Okay? That's it. So all these factors could be going around, and that part of the brain just says, I have worries. I don't know if these worries are being met. If you don't talk to me about how you're gonna face these worries of mine, I'm not even gonna listen to you. You could be making all the sense in the world, and if you're not talking to me, how I can alleviate my issues, my concerns, I'm not even gonna listen to you. I am shutting myself down. Okay? The second one is that part of the brain likes contrasts. In other words, loud noises in a quiet room. When you're in a movie theater and somebody opens the door, or somebody's walking down and they're slurping on their soda and it's a quiet part of the movie, what happens? Everybody kind of looks, right? It's an interruption. It's a moment, it's a sound that doesn't belong in that environment. And your brain, when you look to it, is trying to decide if it poses an imminent danger to you. And if it doesn't, you all turn, and then you're like, oh, it's just a guy with the popcorn. And then you're like, okay, back to the movie. And then something else happens. And then that noise is like, what was that? Okay, nothing. Okay, and you go back to the movie. So it likes contrasts. How this applies to photographers is very, very simple. Instead of showing albums randomly, that doesn't show contrasts at all. Instead of showing photos, if you're a portrait photographer, that doesn't show contrasts at all. But why don't you show an ugly book and then show them a really awesome book? And you're trying to sell the good book, right? You're trying to sell the nice book. So instead of just buying nice books, buy some ugly ones too. Show them the ugly ones and then show them the really nice ones. And that part of the brain is like, Ooh, contrast. I can understand that. I like it. You're talking to me. You know, I don't want that crappy, ugly one. I want this one. But if you start with a nice one, then people are like, there's no point of comparison. Okay? People like it, that part of the brain likes it clear. This is black, this is white. This is small, this is big. Clear. Not with complicated words like, this album will give you an integrated, sophisticated solution. And you're just like, what the heck? You just lost me at integrated. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to, actually when you're teaching classes, like when I'm teaching right now, I actually have to remember that I have to use words that people can easily relate and understand. No point in me standing here and trying to be smart. That doesn't impress anybody. And that's never my desire. When we talk about flashes today, I'm going to talk about them in a way that people are going to understand. I'm going to just simplify the heck out of it because that's a contrast. We're going to show the good. You know why so many people like when I show the bad photo and then I start building it from scratch to the good photo? It's because it's a contrast. You see, like Sue Bryce actually, when she shows the before and after photos, that's talking to that decision maker part of the brain. That's why you do that. You show the ugly photo and your arms are down and you're in the worst pose possible, right? And in the next photo, it's like, right? And to the brain, it's like, contrast, awesome, survival, I love it. Okay, so that's why you do that. Which I will talk about this in client meetings. You definitely want to show some work and then show some crappy room and then show how you transformed it into something totally incredible. And then people are like, you did this from this, that is talking the right language, okay? Instead of doing what most people do, which they just show their awesome photo, and then people are like, oh, that's nice. But there's no point of reference. There's no anchor. There's no contrasting point there. When I'm shooting weddings, I always take a picture of the room, and then I do my magic, and I do my thing, and then when I show clients my work, I show them what I'm capable of. Because how many of you are tired of clients coming up to you and saying, have you shot at my venue before? No. Oh, because I feel like you really need to have shot at my venue for me to hire you. And I'm like, oh God. Why? The sun is still the sun at your venue. Light on my venue, that's a worry. And if you don't alleviate it, I'm not going to hire you because I don't know what you're going to be able to come up with in that venue. And we'll talk about that when we do the client meeting mocking thing. Okay, is this helping you guys a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really interesting stuff. It gives you a whole new angle of looking at sales, that you've never seen before. Maybe you have seen it, but it's just, let me keep going.
Roberta, I just want to read out a comment from the internet from Marion Bader, who says, this info is excellent. Once you get to the level you want in terms of your skill and you realize your services don't get sold by themselves, this is where this kind of info comes in handy. As photographers, we don't have a lot of knowledge about business and even further, perhaps, psychology. So this is perfect.
Marion Bader from Switzerland.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Sweet.
She's actually from Venezuela, but she moved to Switzerland.
Ah.
She's actually awesome. She's another lawyer that became a photographer, so she's super cool. Love her to pieces, actually. And yes, being a great photographer is only part of the equation. Knowing the art of selling it to them is the other part of the equation. And doing it in basic ways. Here's my work, here are my prices, look at my smile, look how cute I am. It's not going to cut it for you. I really worry about people when they come up to me and say, I cannot pay my rent or my mortgage or whatever, I'm starting to lose, I'm going to have to get a job. Photography can provide you with plenty of money. Plenty. Because you're providing memories and people are willing to pay for that. You're providing moments that can be frozen and people pay for freezing moments. I mean, how much do people pay for plastic surgery so they can freeze a moment in their life? Right? They're willing to pay. I mean, I live in Beverly Hills, let me tell you. It's a monster industry. You know, those guys have a monster job right there. I was having lunch with my wife at some restaurant, and all the conversations were, oh my God, like I really need to get like a C plus because a C was not quite good for me, and then I had to get my chin, and then I had to inject my little bags under my eyes, and I got like the double injection, and I was just like, I don't feel like eating anymore. You know, I don't know how when they take a bite, all of that Botox doesn't just squirt out. You know what I mean? And then when they smile, you can even see their face change, and it's so weird. It's like, I'm smiling. I'm like, your lips are this big right now because you have all these Botox injections or fat injections in your lips. It's disgusting.
Tell us what you really think, Roberto.
Disgusting. Okay, that number 3 one is tangible. Every time you talk about a topic, every time you talk about something, my friend Leon, have a tangible product that they can touch and feel and smell. So when you show people your wedding albums, have them touch the wedding album, have them feel the wedding album, and if you really want to, have them smell the leather of the wedding album. Because these are all things that part of the brain loves to see. It wants to get familiar with something, and when you can touch it and when they can feel it, and there's like a tangible, something they can feel and it's something tangible, it's a good thing. Tangible doesn't only talk about physical products, it also talks about how you speak to them. Tangible language is a very different thing. Tangible language is language they can easily understand, something they can easily grasp onto, you know. This is a memory of this, and if you can relate with that memory, that's a tangible memory. That's something tangible that they can grab onto, okay? Look at my incredible photo and how amazing I am. It's not a tangible photo. It's not a tangible topic, I'm sorry. So, I wish you guys could see a client meeting when I'm talking to clients. It's really interesting because there's a lot of psychology in the background.
Helicopters?
Yeah, down to the helicopter. By the way, the helicopters are just props, right? They're props. Sarah, you're funny. The fourth thing to think about is what is the first thing you talk to in your meeting? What is the last thing you talk to? The brain, that part of the brain is busy with your survival. So it only remembers the first and the last. It doesn't care about the middle because it forgets. It's too much information. That part of the brain has limited capability to remember something. So where do you think is the best time to talk about your prices?
In the middle.
Sandwich the heck out of them, right? Or when people ask me to
In the middle.
when people ask me to judge their photos, and their heart and soul are like in their sleeves, and they're like wearing it, and the sleeve gets really thick because they're wearing their heart in it, and I'm like, first you start with something good, then you talk about what could have been improved, then you end it with something positive again. Mm-hmm. With wedding clients or portrait clients, you start out with something, whatever, and getting to know, we'll talk about it. Then you get into the prices, and you get into all the stuff that they're going to reject. Then by the time you get to the third part, they kind of start forgetting the prices. And then when they drive home, they're talking about what happened last and probably what happened first. And the prices are still there, but it's more of a minimal thing. Okay? The next one is visual. And then I put a plus sign. Visual combined with emotion. Let me repeat that. Visual combined with emotion. Not just visual and emotion separately. The visuals have to have an emotional impact to it. Okay? So, let me give an example. When you watch a movie, let's say you watch, what's a sad movie that something bad happens? What happens in The Notebook? Did everybody die?
My Sister's Keeper?
Well, I've never seen that. The Notebook, did somebody die?
Yes.
Yes. And they play sappy music and all that?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a beautiful love story.
And they're raining and it's like the wet, raining and all that.
Yes.
And they add all that. Because rain brings melancholy to your heart, all that stuff. So they're injecting you with all these different things, right? When you have the visual and then the music comes in, the music hits you emotionally like a ton of bricks. But when you're connecting the visual with the music, all of a sudden it's like waterworks on the theater, right? You're waterworking. You start to feel it. You get choked up. You get the throat. The heart starts to, and you start to feel it. Had they turned the volume off and they're still showing the super powerful images, your brain will just kind of be like, that's half the equation, buddy. Give me more. Give me more. What can you do? I'm not saying play music at your client meetings. What I am saying is your voice should be the music to your client meetings. So, when you have a photo, don't show it and talk about how awesome you are, because photo attributes and your skill plays no role. Talk about the story behind the photo and choose photos that have emotional impact, right? Choose photos that have emotional impact. That's how you do it. When you show a wedding album, don't let them just flip through the photos. You're killing it. You're killing yourself. You control it. You show the photo, and you put the photo on your TV or whatever, so you can make it big, so they're not just looking at a small piece of it. Okay? And you tell them, oh my gosh, let me tell you what happened here. Let me tell you why this picture was so meaningful to the bride. Let me tell you why this photo was so meaningful to the father of the bride. I think I might have said this before. My dad died right before my wedding was supposed to happen, and he died of pancreatic cancer. And he told me he was going to try to survive until my wedding so he could come to it, but he didn't make it. He died a few weeks prior to the wedding. And the reason why I say that is because now, when I go to weddings, I'm big on trying to get the father of the bride and the father of the groom very well recorded, very well. My heart, from what happened to me, does not let me go to a wedding and not really concentrate on the father of the bride, the father of the groom, and so forth. You know? And I spend a lot of time paying attention to what's meaningful to me. This is a very meaningful thing to me. The first time the father dances with his daughter is an awesome moment for me, if I can get through it. Right? I'm watching this father-daughter dance, or when the father walks his daughter down the aisle, it's awesome for me. You know, so for example, Kim's dad had 2 heart attacks in the same day, and one of the heart attacks was in the hospital. So he survived it and he's perfectly fine. So when he was able to walk him down the aisle, I was thinking about that. At least she has her father with her. You know, that's awesome. You know, so these are moments that you never ever want to. These are just stories. So this is what happened. When you have a child or something and you have a cool story behind it, it has a much more powerful meaning to it. Okay, so.
I have a question on that, Roberto.
Yeah.
What do you think is more powerful when you're going through that album with a client? Is you storytelling for them, or you asking questions to them to make them remember that moment kind of on their own? Or
kind of beautiful question. Nice. If you inject rhetorical questions to your clients, you're basically probing them for the answer that you want. So you can tell the story that you have, or you can ask them, what if blah, 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 and let them fill in the blanks, which is a rhetorical question, right? If you're going to ask rhetorical questions, which you should have them planned out, because it triggers a memory, because it's on them now. They're making the answer for your rhetorical question. One rhetorical question is, let's just go back to simple stuff. What happens if it rains at your wedding? What happens if it's storming like Hurricane Katrina at your wedding? That is talking to the part of your brain that makes a decision. That's talking to that part that's like having pain, thinking, that's a worry I have. What happens if it is? And if you don't alleviate that, I'm not going to hire you. The old brain, that part of the brain is honey badger. It doesn't care. It doesn't care about how good or how much you have heard of that photographer. You know? It just wants to know if you're going to alleviate that pain or not. So, any questions on that, guys?
Can you give another example of a rhetorical question, or
like while you're looking through the album, would you say something
what would
like,
you say?
do you remember when, or how did you feel when?
Yeah.
What are the types of things?
We actually tried to photograph the father walking down with his daughter down the aisle in a way that has the most emotional impact. And if I can, later on, I will show you a slideshow of what that looks like. whether my second shooter is taking those photos or not, or if I'm doing it, I make sure that whoever's second shooting for me is very in tune with the father walking down the father walking down his daughter down the aisle, or I'm doing it. One of us has to be doing it, because when, like Kenna says, when you're looking at the book and you have the photos that are in the book in the big screen, so you can actually talk about them. If you say something like, "Here's the back of the father's head walking the back of the daughter," because you're in the back, that's not going to give you anything. But imagine if you say something like, "Can you imagine what that bride felt?" Or "Can you imagine what that must feel like after so much anticipation for that?" Because let's be honest, and I'm not trying to be sappy, but let's just be honest. I don't care how many weddings I've done, when the bride is walking down the aisle and the music starts and everyone's watching her, it's going to be an emotional moment. It's not to be sappy, it's just the way it is. I don't care if she's from New York and she's like all strong and stuff. You know? They're going to be like, it's going to hit to them. So when you ask something like that, maybe you don't have to make it that sappy. Maybe you can say something more interesting, but you're probing a question about the feelings that are happening while you're walking when you're walking the daughter down the aisle. Okay? Okay. One thing I want to say is these 2 quick bullet points, and I put them on their own slides because I wanted people to really remember these. When clients come up to you and they're sitting in your studio, they're not concerned about what they don't care about anything other than what you can do for them to alleviate their fears. Okay? That's all they care about. What can you do for them? Not how good you are, not what a great artist you are. Do you think if I go to a client and I say, "Did you know I'm the author of a top-selling photography book?" It's like, bleh. They could care less. They only care about what you can do for them. And the second thing you have to remember is the second bullet. As much as you are great, Christelle, let me tell you something. You don't matter. You don't matter at all. The only thing that I'm talking to you for, because you are the photographer and I'm the client, is how are you going to alleviate my pains? How are you going to alleviate my concerns? I don't care who you are. I don't care about your reputation. I don't care about anything. I don't care about your Gucci shoes during the wedding. I just care about whether you are going to be able to come through, whether it rains, whether it snows, whether it's dark, whether it's bright. Are you going to be able to come through? Are you predictable? Do you bring a product that I can expect? And if your albums are, this wedding is amazing, this wedding looks really crappy, this wedding, if it's not consistent in the level of the work, you can leave doubts in the second bullet, and the decision maker part of your brain will reject you. Okay? It will just reject you. You're not the one. So. When we talk about contrasts, this is what I was telling you about right now. Create contrasts. For example, show before and after. Show the room and then show what you did in the room. That's a contrast. Okay, to a client, they want to see how creative you are, see if you can actually do something with their own room. Second is with or without. That's a contrast they can hold on to. This is what happens with, this is what happens without. Okay? If you say, this is what happens if the bride and the groom see each other before the wedding. This is what happens when the bride and groom see each other after the wedding. That's with, that's without. That's a clear concept. It's tangible. You can understand that. Sun, rain. You have a sunny album, you have a rainy album. Those are contrasts the brain can hold on to. Okay? And also time and no time. When a client comes to me, I say, here's an album where I had 15 minutes to do the bride and groom portraits, and here's an album where I had an hour to do the bride and groom portraits. Time, no time. It's a contrast the brain likes and understands. Oh my gosh, the first bullet here, it's the one that drives me nuts. Avoid being cool at your client meetings. Impressing people with your technical knowledge is boring, and nobody cares. Nobody cares, okay? Avoid technical language. Are you a good photographer, Christelle?
I think so.
OMG. Look at the second bullet. Confident and definitive responses. I think so. That adds more concerns to the brain. You just totally killed yourself. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're going to say you are good, and this is why, you better prove it. Prove it. But for God's sake, do not say, I guess. I don't know, maybe. Depends on the day. Right? The next one is, do not leave room for misinterpretation. Okay? So be clear. This is what you're going to get if you follow the timeline that I'm giving you. This is what you're going to get if you don't. Brain likes that. Clear. Black or white. Black or white. Okay? Not, well, if you follow 75.8% of what I'm telling you, you're going to get about 26.2% of this type of photos. It's confusing. It's like, okay, what the heck? They just happened. It's like this. You give me 30 minutes, this is what you're going to get. You give me 45 minutes, this is what you're going to get. Okay? Here's an hour, here's 15 minutes. Here's you.